always a blessing to get here and see everybody, and I'm always excited to get here, and even seeing Charlie is always exciting for me. He gives me grief all the time. He doesn't even hear me right now.
He's only 9.
Yeah.
He's only 9.
Always give me grief, but I still like seeing him.
I never thought they had a home.
But anyway, well, we'll go ahead and get everything started this morning. So let's start off with prayer. Father, thank you for this time together this morning and for your word, God. I thank you for each person that's here today. I would thank you for those that have got out in the heat and in this and made a journey today here to be in your house and to fellowship with each other and with you. God, we just ask today that your presence be here. Your word says that if any two of us or three of us are gathered in your name, that you are in the midst of us. And God, that is why we're here. That's what we desire. We long to be strengthened and encouraged by our mutual faith and fellowship. But God, ultimately, we are here to be strengthened and encouraged by your Spirit moving among us. Yeah. And that is what we desire today. Father God, we love you so much, and we thank you for each breath and each heartbeat and each day that you give us. God, we just ask today that we're strengthened today. God, that people are encouraged, that their spirits receive the nourishment that they need to go out and be a witness for you this next week. We ask all these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, William Cross has a skit for us this morning, so I will get out of the way and let them move this. This is fine. Please.
Still grew a child, the very first skit they ever did, and none of this group was in that, many years ago, and as a mother, you know it doesn't matter what age they are or what happens in their life, you still hurt when they hurt, they're still a child.
share a minute with us. We're so blessed to have this as a ministry and part of our church.
Amen.
I'm just I don't know what to say this, but the things you share with us just bless me. I'll get my mind.
Thank you, Lord.
Today, I wanted to share with you a little bit about how each of us should have an attitude of gratitude. A lot of things happen around us, and life happens all the time. And it's so easy for us to get bogged down with those thoughts to where we're not grateful for all the good that happens in our lives. And we just saw an expression of God's love for us, how He gave His only Son for us, how that mother watched her son spit upon, talked bad about, told untruths, everything imaginable. The purest form, and yet they accused Him of horrible things. And we go and make big things out of little things sometimes in our life and forget to be grateful for what we should be grateful for. And people do things, sometimes you can do something nice for somebody, and it gets back to you that they thought you were doing something mean. It can be twisted. But we need to express our gratitude for every little thing. And they have done a lot of research, behavioral and psychological research, and found that being grateful improves a person in so many ways. Here are a few of the ways. It makes the person happier. It makes us happier if we're grateful. It makes the other person happier. Yourself, a thank you just means a ton. If you do something, anything, just when they say thank you, it's like, oh, wow, that's nice. You don't hear that often. We just go about our way, and we don't want to be responsible for being like that. It strengthens relationships if we're grateful for the things, our grandkids and great-grandkids, if they say they like something or thank me, chances are they're going to get 10 times that later, because it strengthens that relationship. It reduces stress. If I learn to be thankful for everything, what I have, what I'm going to have, the good things in my life, it will ease the stress of the things that I'm dealing with in life that might not be a positive force right then. It improves our health, because any time you can reduce your stress, your health is going to be better. It helps to combat anxiety and depression. I didn't realize for a long time that depression was a pity party. I thought it was something that attacked me. And in a way, but if we're grateful, we can help kind of pull ourselves up out of that. It increases our satisfaction in life if we're grateful for what we do have. It provides confidence in our personal growth and our purpose in life and our self-acceptance if we're grateful. And it moves us to the closer to the fulfillment of our dreams. And we all have dreams. They're all different. I'm married to a big dreamer. He's a big man, and he's a dreamer. He dreams big. And I haven't always been able to see that vision. And when I have an idea of something, it's not always his idea for a long time. But when you have a dream or a goal, set it. Write it down. Like, me, I like to set financial goals and divide it up. Okay, every month has 4.3 weeks. We get paid weekly, so this is going to amount to this and this and this. This is what this is going to take. If I buy that, it has a payment. This is what it's going to take from that. Is it worth that to me forever? Or is it just a gotta have it now thing? So set a goal, write it down. The Word says to do that. Write it down, make it plain, put it where you can see it. That's a good thing. The refrigerator's a good place. Most of us find our way there. Did I see on Facebook the other day that you put something that we weren't supposed to eat in the night while we were lying in the refrigerator? And then thank God for it. Before it even happens. I was studying some of Terry Savelle Foy's lessons this week, and she said in their ministry, when they set a new goal, they talk about it in their administrative meeting, they write it down. And the very first thing they do is to pray and thank God for it. That is the ultimate faith, to do that. That shows God, I'm serious about this, and I know you are God. I know you are my daddy, and you're going to do everything you can for me. You will take care of this. So that moves God's hand when we do that, when we're grateful, when we trust Him enough. You know, if I tell Stone, he hears me, I'm in trouble. If I say we're going to go to the zoo Friday, no, we're not. But if I were to tell him we were, he would be so excited, and he would be thanking me on Monday and Thursday, and whenever I see him, he would be thanking me. I'm so excited, Grandma, that we're going to go to the zoo. I love the zoo. I'm so happy. Thank you for taking me. That's what we need to do with our Father God. When we ask Him for something, He wants to give us the desires of our heart. He already knows those desires, but when we ask, it puts it out there real. If we write it down, it's even more real. Then begin thanking Him, because we know He is going to do it. If you have a certain thing in mind that you are believing for, see it, believe it, thank Him, get excited about it. I'm finally going to have it. I've wanted this for so long. And then that raises our faith, because the highest expression of faith is to thank God before He ever does it. Do you know that praise is the shortest distance between God and you? And as we go into praise this morning, remember that praise opens doors of opportunity, favor, and the breakthrough toward our success. So let's praise Him, let's thank Him, let's rejoice in all He has done for us.
Amen.
Amen. Always enjoy those. Always a blessing for us. All right. Well, as far as announcements go, we didn't have bulletins this morning. So we have decided with the heat, because it's like 137 outside today, that we're not going to do Praise in the Dark tonight. So we'll just wait, and everybody can join us next month, and we'll just have an extra special one then. So everybody go home and get in front of your air conditioner and just stay there, all right? So we won't have Praise in the Dark tonight. Are there any other announcements anyone can think of? Yes, go ahead.
I announced that Cross will be doing this Get Everything by Lighthouse tomorrow night at 7 at Happy Home to kick off their revival with Nathan Humbert. I would encourage anybody that has never heard him or has heard him to be there for an exciting time. We are honored to get to do this.
Amen. And that'll be a great event. It'll be awesome. All right. Well, any other announcements for anyone? What? Oh, okay.
I just want to say tomorrow is my awesome Harvard and Public birthday. We are so blessed to do this up at the program, and they always get together, and our kids and
Now, Vic, how old are you going to be tomorrow? If you're a lady, I couldn't ask that question, but I can ask you that. 64.
Add it together.
What?
Add it together, you can.
Not together, you can. Well, if that worked for me, I'd be 3.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll wait a few more years before I start doing that one.
Nancy mentioned that mailboxes out there. You got cards for your birthday and things. You might want to look at them. You might have a birthday if you didn't know it.
Yeah, you want to make sure to check your mailbox. If you're like, well, I'm not really sure if I have a mailbox, you probably do. If you don't, then talk tonight and we'll make sure you get one. 'Cause a lot of times people leave things for you, and it's always kind of a nice pleasant surprise when you get a card or you get something in there. And so make sure you check that on your way in the mornings or on your way out before you head out and get to the cool place. So, all right, well, is everybody ready to praise the Lord?
Yes.
All right, well, the worship team, let's come on up. You would stand up. We like participation. Amen.
We will shout. After Spirit fall.
silence is an awkward thing, but I think too many times we're too quick to rush out of the presence of the Lord. Sometimes that silence, that time, that at the end of worship or whether it be in prayer, that silence is a time of listening and keeping our hearts open, and a time to just be open and allow God to just refill us all over again. I heard a kind of a cool quote several years back from Mother Teresa. It was pretty cool to get an interview with her, and they were talking to her about praying. And it's pretty interesting. The person who was doing the article, they asked her. They said, "Well, so you talk to God?" And she said, "Well, mostly, I just sit there and listen." And the guy doing the article, he said, "Really?" He said, "Wow." He said, "Well, what does God have to say?" And she said, "Well, mostly he just sits there and listens." Sounds a little silly at first, but there's a powerful truth there,
Yeah.
And there's this powerful truth in just taking time to just kind of be still and know that He is God. And be still and just be quiet in His presence. And then when we do that, we're just saturated, we're filled, we're strengthened, we're encouraged in that time. And I'm leading praise and worship. I love the times when it's like, and jump around and have a good time, in that way too. But you have to have that balance and have both those times. So, all right, well, that was a freebie, by the way. That wasn't part of the message. So, but as you all have noticed, I'm not Pastor Rod. Have I noticed that yet? Yeah.
You're a little shorter.
What?
You're a little shorter.
A little shorter? Better looking now. Better looking. I'm kidding. A little shorter hair,
No goatee.
No goatee? Yeah, I still can't grow a goatee, so I can't say anything there. Don't have a shot out for a while. But anyway, yes, Pastor Rod is gone. This is their time of year. It's really, really busy. They have a lot of fairs going on. They have one in Minnesota and one in Kansas City starting out, and so he wasn't able to be here with us today and asked me to fill in for him. So anyway, we're going to share a message with you today. All right, go with me to Genesis chapter 1. And I'm going to talk to you today about resting in the Lord. It's interesting. The world has this philosophy and these ideas, and they kind of push all these ideas on us that when we get to a certain place financially that we'll have peace, or that when we get to a certain place in life that we'll have peace. And they kind of push all these different things on us that, I don't have any insurance salesman, I don't think, but like if you think about insurance, what's the whole concept behind insurance? It's like, think about the peace of mind that you have knowing that all your medical expenses will be covered, or that your car is covered, or all these different things. And that stuff does bring a certain level of peace. It does, If we are in a secure place in our job, that brings a certain level of peace and rest and some security. But our security, our peace, our rest, and I mean our rest, comes from the Lord. And did you know that God actually wants us to rest? And when I say rest, I don't mean just sleep, but actually take some time off. Did you know that? God actually wants you to take some time off and enjoy the creation that He's given us. He wants us to be able to balance things in our life. So I want to show you this. Genesis chapter 1. You probably already know where I'm going with this, but Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to go to verse 31. It says this: God saw all that He had made, and it was very good. Anybody ever kind of have one of those nice times when you do something and then you look back at it and you're like, okay, yeah, you just kind of enjoy looking at it? Am I the only one who does that? I think we all do, right? Maybe it's like washing the dishes and you look back at the empty sink and you're like, right? The ladies are like, yeah. The guys are like, it's like, and dirty dishes don't bother me none, For us guys, though, we get through, we get our yard all mowed, we get it all weed-eated, and get everything trimmed up and looking nice, and we kind of look back and we go, and it just it brings that sense of rest, that sense of relief of knowing that kind of have things in order. You know, I love that it just kind of explains that about God. He looked back at all that He had created, and it was good. He looked back and said, hey, you know, this is good. And let's see, where's that there? It was very good. Evening came, and then morning of the sixth day. And then go on to chapter 2. It says, so the heavens and the earth and everything in them were completed. By the seventh day, God completed His work that He had done, and He, what's it say right there? Rested. Sorry, I'm a youth pastor, so I like with teenagers, like you have to kind of keep the participation going. So I'll ask you guys a lot of questions. So on the seventh day, it says, let me read that again. It says, the seventh day God completed His work and all that He had done, and He rested. All right. Sorry, with teenagers, you got to keep them involved, or they're just like, you look at these cats on YouTube. No. So you think I'm joking? No. I was preaching to the kids downstairs one time, and I thought, man, I have really got their attention. Like I am really going somewhere, and I showed this like short video clip at the beginning of the message, and I'm like talking to them, and they're all just like, goodness, I'm like, wow, I'm really getting somewhere. And then like I stepped over to the side a little bit, and they're all still staring. And I looked over, and it was that DVD logo that bounces around the screen, and they were just like, and I was like, really? That's all it takes? I'm like, is it ever going to hit the corner? So anyways, I like a little participation. I'll try to keep everybody in and out. All right, so it says that on the seventh day, God rested. You know what? If God, the creator of the universe, takes a day to rest, don't you think that we need to?
Yes.
Don't you think that we need to?
Yes.
I mean, he's giving us an example here. He's giving us some wisdom that we're going to be able to take, that we need to take and put it into our lives. Our society today has kind of pushed off this idea that we need to be busy all the time. Am I right? And you know, we've kind of allowed some of that to creep into the church. Not like our church in general, but just into the church as a whole. We kind of, and the world's life is crazy enough. People in the world who don't go to church are like, man, my life's busy, I don't have time for church. And then we're like, hey, come to my super busy church where we do 14 events every week. Your life can be just as crazy as mine is. And they're like, no, I don't want any part of that, you know. But if we learn to rest in the Lord and to take the peace and the rest that He gives us and walk in that, man, it makes a huge difference for us. All right, we're gonna kind of make a little progression of this. So go to Exodus chapter 16. Exodus chapter 16 and verse 23. It says this, and He told them, we're going to go from verse 23 down through verse 30. It says this, and He told them, this is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil, and everything left over set aside to be kept until morning. So they set aside until morning as Moses had commanded, and didn't smell or have any of the maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath day of the Lord. Today you won't find any in the field. For 6 days you may gather it, and on the seventh day, the Sabbath day, there will be none. Now what's going on here is the children of Israel are just not very far removed from slavery. Okay? They're out in the desert, there's not a lot of food, there's not a lot of water. So what God's doing is He's actually providing for them through the substance called manna. Okay, it falls down from the sky each night, and they pick it up off the ground. Okay, it's basically like a bread substance. So He's telling them on the seventh day, on the Sabbath, don't go out and pick up the bread because there's not going to be any. But pick enough on the sixth day to keep the bowl. Yet on the seventh day, some of the people went out together, but they did not find any. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? Understand that the Lord has given you a Sabbath day. Therefore, on the sixth day, He will give you 2 days' worth of bread. Each of you stay where you are, and no one is to leave his place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. So how important is it that God wants us to rest? It's pretty important. So important that it's actually one of the 10 commandments that God gives us. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Now, here's what happened, was the Israelites took this, and this was God saying, hey, take this day of rest, have it consecrated, have it holy to me. Okay? What happened was the Jews, they kind of took this, and then they sort of like ran with it. You know what I'm saying? They took this, and they eventually, and we'll see this here in a minute, they took it and they went way too far into this. Like, okay, well, God says that, this should be a day of complete rest. It should be a day that we don't work. So what exactly defines work? Well, walking a certain distance from your house would have to be work. And so they start setting up all of these other rules. And they say, okay, well, in order to stay within these rules, I've got to make sure that we don't do all these other things. It'd be kind of like, if in the city of Ava, if they made a law and said, all right, you cannot walk in the street. You can get hit by a car, so we're going to say you cannot walk in the street. Makes sense, right? Okay. So, but then somebody's walking along and they're walking in the grass along beside the street, and they trip and fall and they land in the street. And so the city says, you know what? That law obviously is not working. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it illegal. Not only can you not walk in the street, but we're going to make it illegal for you to walk in the grass beside the street. That work? I think because in order for you to get into the street, you got to get through the grass to get to the street, right? Okay, that kind of makes sense. And then before long, some kid's riding his bicycle on the sidewalk, and he kind of loses control, runs through the grass, runs out into the street. Says, you know what? Obviously, these other two laws are not working. So, what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and make it illegal for you to walk or ride bicycles on the sidewalk. Because in order to get to the street, you have to go through the grass beside the street, and you have to go through the sidewalk to get to that grass. Now, does that sound a little bit ridiculous? Yeah? Are you sure? Are you sleeping on me?
Not yet.
That sounds a little crazy, right? Not yet? It sounds crazy. And the reason it sounds crazy is because it is. But here's what happened is the Jews, especially later on, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that's exactly what they did with these laws. They took God saying, hey, I'm giving you a day of rest, a day that's holy, that's consecrated to me. I'm giving you that time. And he says, keep this, make it holy, keep it separate. And he says, and later on there's another passage on in Exodus where he says that it'll be a sign between you and the world. Now think about that for a minute. I didn't pull that scripture up, but he says it'll be a sign between you and the world to recognize that there is a day of rest. Now here, if you think about it, like I said, these people were not very far removed from slavery. Okay? They were not very far removed from hard labor. And you think that the Egyptian taskmasters would let them get a day off, you better think twice, because that wasn't how it worked. So for them to try to take this day off was, I think it's kind of drastically similar to our culture today, which pushes this idea that we've got to be busy all the time. Anybody pick up on that? They push this concept that we've got to be doing something. Man, if I'm not doing something, I'm just wasting time. And that's not what God teaches us. And we're going to see that here in a few ways. God teaches us that it is okay to take some time and rest. Take some time and do some things that you enjoy. If you're Pastor Butch, it is okay to get on that motorcycle and just drive somewhere. And you get there and you eat something and drive right back. And there wasn't no reason to go other than just to enjoy the drive, right? I had a lot of stuff this week and weekend I had to do, and I got a whole bunch of different projects done. But you know what? You know what I did yesterday? I spent about 2 hours on the back of a wave runner, wide open, running down the lake. I had the most fun I've had in a long time. But you know what? That's okay. That's a good thing. That's something God desires us to enjoy the things of this life. He wants us to have these blessings, these good times. He wants us to have this time of rest and a time that's consecrated and holy to Him. All right, so anyway, let's jump on up to Mark chapter 2. I got quite a few scriptures today. Mark chapter 2 and verse 23. And this is where it gets kind of interesting because, like I was telling you the whole little story there about Ava, and if they made all these extra rules to keep people out of the street, how it would be crazy. Well, that's basically what the Jews, and especially the Pharisees and Sadducees several years later, really did, was they took these 10 laws that God gave us, and they said, you know what, those really aren't enough. So we need to add all these other rules to keep you from breaking those 10. Okay? And the funny thing about human nature is Anybody know that, like, you know, you tell a kid, like, hey, that's hot. What do? They'll touch it, right? You know, it's human nature that rules don't stop us from doing something. We can see that by, like, anybody ever look up, like, the videos of, like, stupid criminals? I'm the only one that does that. You know, you see the people and you're like, what were you thinking? Like, anyway, I'll stop there. There's some really, really funny ones out there. So that's something you can go do to just have fun. But yeah. Anyway, that's what they had done, was they took these 10 rules that God had and they made all these other rules on top of it. And you know, like I said, it's kind of crazy, but sometimes we allow some of those things to creep into the church. So, all right, on Mark chapter 2 and verse 20-30, it says this. On the Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields. Now, this is talking about Jesus with his disciples. On the Sabbath day, he was going through the grain fields, and his disciples began to make their way, picking some heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him, look what they are doing. What it is not lawful on the Sabbath. So what's going on here? They were going through the grain fields, and they would pull some of the grain off of the stalks there, and they would kind of rub it together in their hands to get rid of some of the extra stuff that they didn't eat, and then they would eat it, is what they were doing. So they were eating some of it. But according to these Pharisees and Sadducees, they're like, hey, that's work. What they've done, they've taken what God says, take a day of rest, and they've taken this and they've gone so far with it. So let's see, I love how Jesus answers this. He said to them, have you never read what David and those who were with him did when he was in need and hungry? How they entered the house of God in the time of Asher and the high priest, and they ate the sacred bread, which was not lawful for anyone to eat except the priest, and also gave some to his companions. He told them, and I love this line. Now get this, okay? The Sabbath was not made for man, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. You see, what he's saying there was that God gave us a day of rest. God gave us time. Now, I want to be very, very clear. I don't want you guys to think what I'm saying is that you should not work on Sunday, because that's not what I'm telling you. Okay? And we're going to see that here in just a minute. That it's not about a particular day. It's about the heart. It's not about a separate day and saying, okay, this is my day. That, you know, it's about the heart. You may have some things that you have to get done on the Sabbath day. And there's another passage where Jesus tells the Pharisees, he says, which of you, if you have an ox that falls into a ditch on Sunday, is not going to pull it out? I know we have farmers out here. If you have a cow that's calving on Sunday, you're not going to say, well, I'll see you tomorrow. Just doesn't work that way, does it? Because then you'll be hauling it to the butcher, right? On Monday, yeah. Monday. Anyway, he gave us a day of rest. And that's something that, like I said, our society and the world today tries to take it away from us. They try to take this and say that, no, we need to be busy all the time. We've got to be doing all these different things. You know, especially I see it a lot in families. You know, I mean, we get, especially today, you know, our kids get involved in sports or this or that, and things like, and we get so busy that we don't spend time together as a family. And you know, when your kids grow up, they're not going to remember so much that soccer game that they won. You know, that'll be big. But the times that they spend with their family, I look back at my age, which I was never really athletic, but I did play sports and things like that. And everybody was like, we can tell that, you know. No. But I look back and the times that I remember the most were the times that I spent with family. And you know, if we will take time to spend with our family, if we'll take some time to rest, to relax, to do those things, then it will be a sign between us and the world. And the world's going to go, man, how do you have peace? How can you, you know, take a Sunday afternoon and just go drive a motorcycle? How can you go fishing? How can you, you know, it's a sign between us and the world. If we actually listen to God and we take time to rest and to relax. And you know, I'm gonna get on some toes here. So everybody ready? Everybody got your toes curled up. So husbands and wives, we need to recognize when our spouse needs that time, because they may not need that time when we do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Husbands, we need to recognize that, you know what, maybe she had a long day. And all right? Wives, we need to realize that, hey, you know what, maybe he's had a long day. He's just not quite ready to take the trash out right now. We have to learn, and now that sounds silly, but yeah, those little things like that can start to creep up and cause issues. We have to learn, you know. Men, we need to learn to say, okay, honey, here's the credit card, go shopping. And that's not to say that you don't reduce the limit on the card before you give it there. And ladies, we need to learn that, you know what, sometimes that he just needs to go fishing. What? Off the clutch, okay. Or sometimes, you know, sometimes he needs to go on. We all have to have that time. Now, sometimes you want to take that time and enjoy that time with your spouse. You know what? Husbands, take your wives out on a date. You know, take a night to just enjoy. Sometimes you need that time individually. But we've got to be willing to give that to the other person in our marriage, because we each need that, and it may be something different than what the other one needs. You know, I love backpacking. I just love it. I take a backpack and I take like this, you know, tarp. I take like a tarp with some rope, and that's my shelter. Okay, that's what I go and I'll backpack a couple days, and I'll sleep under a tarp. And I may tie a hammock up between a couple trees or whatever. I'll just find somewhere to sleep, do a little campfire and stuff. Carrie likes like tent camping in the park, and understandably so. So we have to. It's kind of funny because like I take her backpacking sometimes, and she enjoys it. But then the next time I'm like, "Hey, you want to go backpacking?" She's like, "No, let's go to the park." Okay, we can do that. We all just enjoy things and relax differently, and that's something that we all need. That God says for us. What did Jesus say? He said, "The Sabbath was for man, not the man for the Sabbath." It is not about the day. It's about taking time for ourselves and time for the Lord. And you know what? He says, I thought it was so cool. God says that day of rest is holy. It's consecrated. It's set apart. That's a holy thing, to take time for yourself. Now, like I said, that's not what our world likes to tell us. That's not what the world wants us to think. They think that we need to be busy all the time and always be accomplishing something. And that's not what God says. God says, you know what? Take some time for yourself. You know, I was talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They went so far in this. There are a couple different places in the New Testament where they said, well, Jesus can't be of God because he heals people on the Sabbath day. I mean, that's how far they went with this. That's how far they went out of this. They're saying, and Jesus actually at one point, he looks at them and he says, is it lawful for me to do good or evil on the Sabbath day? To give life or to take it away? You see, that's what happened. And we have a tendency to do some of the same things. We have a tendency to come in and say, you know what? And I think we do it to ourselves more than we do it to anyone else today, in that we say, well, man, it's a beautiful morning, man, I'd love to go, wet a hook, but I've got all these things, this, and this to do. And you know what? There are times that we need to get those things done. Because like I said, there's a rest, there's a fulfillment in completing the work, the things that we have to do. There's a rest in that. But then there's also a rest and fulfillment in taking some time to just enjoy the life that God has given us and that He's blessed us with. Like I said yesterday, I had a lot of things to do this weekend, and one of the things I needed to do was weed eat my yard. And you know what? The weeds are still standing there. But I still went yesterday and spent some time on a wave runner and relaxed and enjoyed myself. And that's okay. That's what God wants us to do. All right, so jump with me down to Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. And we're going to just kind of see here some of the things. This one's kind of cool. And this kind of piggybacks on the issue that it's not about the day. Sorry, you guys want to hear a little funny story about me? Yeah? Like growing up in Sunday school, I had a teacher that taught us to learn the books of the New Testament. You sang this little song, And to this day, when I'm flipping through the Bible, I'm singing that song to this day. It's kind of funny, but that's why it takes me longer to get there, because I'm like, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Actually, that was the world my full-time game. So, all right, Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16, it says this, and this is the Apostle Paul talking. Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. Therefore, this is the Apostle Paul talking. He says, therefore, don't let anyone judge you in regard to food or drink, or in the matter of a festival or of a new moon, or a Sabbath day. Because there's still a big debate about this. There's still a big deal out there. We're saying, we got to have this day, and we can't work, and we can't do... And that's what he's saying here. He says, don't let anyone judge you about a Sabbath day. Because what's verse 17 said? It says, these are a shadow of what was to come. The substance is the Messiah. What is he saying? He's saying that this day of rest, that these festivals, that these moons, all these different things that they had were a foreshadowing of the time that the Savior would appear. And the time that Jesus Christ would come. And He's already coming. And He's already came. So He's saying, don't let anybody judge you. Because what's going on here, it's interesting. One of the greatest temptation you see in the Old Testament in the Bible was for people to start worshiping other gods. You see it over and over and over again with the Israelites. The greatest temptation in the New Testament that you see over and over is people who were saved by grace to try to get back under the law. You see it in the New Testament over and over and over again. The Apostle Paul would travel somewhere, or Peter or somebody would travel and preach and win people to Christ, and then this other group of people they called the Judaizers would come in and try to say, okay, well now you've got to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And the Apostle Paul would have to come back and say, no, you don't. You're born again. It's through Christ. It's not through something that I can do. It's through Him. And to this day, that some of that stuff is still going on. But he says, don't let anyone judge you about a day. It's not about the day. It's about the attitude of the heart. It's about taking time in my heart. It may be on Sunday. It may be on Tuesday. It doesn't matter. But it's about taking that time for me to relax and enjoy life. And taking time for me to spend in the presence of God. Because both refresh you. Both strengthen you. Both encourage you. Do they encourage you and strengthen you differently? Yes. But both are there and both were given for a purpose and for a reason. Alright, go to Matthew chapter 11. I got 3 more scriptures here. Let's see. Matthew chapter 11. Here's what I want to kind of show you. First off, it's God gave us a day. God told us to take some time to rest, to take some time to spend with Him, to be rejuvenated, to be strengthened. And we see here, and I want to show you here kind of what Jesus says, what His plan, what His thoughts are for us. Matthew chapter 11 and verse 28 says this, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you
Rest.
rest. All of you, take up my yoke." And I'm going to, one of these things, I love this passage because it always says, take up my yoke. And when I was like a kid and for like several years, I never understood that because I was like, okay, take up my yoke. Like an anchor man. So a yoke is what they would use to attach to an animal to pull a plow or to pull a car and do things like that. So what he's saying is, take up my yoke. Take up this burden of mine that is light, that's easy. All right. All of you, take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble in heart. And you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That's the message that God has for us today. Is lighten up. There are things in this life that are going to happen, and you know what? Some of those things are going to be waiting for you tomorrow. Take some time to spend with your family. Take some time to spend with yourself. Take some time to spend with our Heavenly Father.
Amen.
Because we don't have to be busy. We don't have to be working all the time. All right, 1 Peter chapter 5. Some of you probably already quote this, but you're just saying that. 1 Peter chapter 5. And I'm just kind of showing you some of the things that God has intended for us. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 6 says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that He may exalt you in due time, casting all your care on Him, because He cares for you." Casting all your care. And I love this because it doesn't say some of it. It says all of it. You know, sometimes it seems like the way that the things work is we want to try to handle a problem and deal with it and fight it until it gets to where it's just totally too much for us. And then we're like, okay, God, here's this problem. Am I right? Is there anybody else here that does that? Okay, I'm going to handle this and I'm going to take care of this. And then when we get to the point where like at the end of the rope, then we're like, okay, God, now I need it. I need your help now. And He says, cast all your care on me. Not just the problems that we know we can't handle ourselves. It says all your care. Even the little things. The little things. You know what? When you're having problems or, machines break down at work or things like that, man, just cast all your care on the Lord. All of it. Not part of it, not just the big problems, all of our care on the Lord. Why? Because He cares for you. And here's what a lot of us do. A lot of us take our care and then we're kind of like, all right, God, here it is. I'm giving this to you and I'm going to leave it there and I know that you're going to take care of it, and then we just pull it right back.
Yeah.
Am I right?
That's right.
Yeah. I saw a guy do this one time. It was really cool. He took one of those little yo-yos that's has the spring in it. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody ever seen one of those? No? Okay, never mind. Somebody won't tell the story. But anyway, he took this box. He had this little box, and he said, all right, this is like our care for the Lord. He said, we say, okay, God, we're going to give you our care, and you throw it up, and then it just goes right back down to His hands. And that's what we do a lot of times. We say, okay, God, I want to give you my care, and we throw it, and it just comes right back. And it's because a lot of times we just that's our human nature to just pull that stuff back into those worries. He says, cast all your care on the Lord and be able to rest, be able to trust in Him. All right, Matthew 6. This is my last passage here today. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 25. I'm just going to read you all this passage. This is Jesus speaking on the Sermon on the Mount. This is the longest message that we have from Jesus in His earthly ministry. And He tells us this in verse 25. This is why I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about what you will wear. Isn't life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the sky. They don't reap, they don't gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? Can you add a single cubit of height by worrying? If that was the case, then I should worry some more. Everybody was making the cracks about Rob being taller or something. All right. And why do you worry about clothes? Learn how that the wildflowers of the field grow, and they don't labor or spin a thread. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and is thrown into the furnace tomorrow, won't He do much more for you? You have little faith. So don't worry saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear? For the idolaters eagerly seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you have need of them. You see, guys, this being able to rest, being able to take some time, it is a sign between us and the world. It does set us apart from the world. When we say, you know what, hey, I just take some time to rest. I take some time to spend with the Lord, to spend with my family, to just enjoy life. I take these things and I don't worry about it. I don't fear about them. And when the world sees you not worrying and fearing like they do, it sets us apart. And they say, man, I need that in my life. What's different about you? Because ultimately, that's the reason we're all still here. Because we gotta get some more people to know Jesus. And this learning to rest in Him, this helps us to get through. All right, for the idolaters eagerly seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you have need of them. But seek first what? The kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added, will be provided for you. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You see, guys, in Genesis we see that God set aside a day of rest. And we see over in Exodus that God gave us a day of rest. We see that it's not particularly about the day. And it's not about making sure that I don't, do whatever is so that it's not working on the Sabbath day. It's about setting aside time in our heart to spend with God, to spend with our family, and to just enjoy this life. Because when we do that, man, it opens up a door for us to be able to reach people for Jesus. Because, a couple of weeks ago, Pastor Rod preached a sermon about being yourself. And he talked about how when you're trying to be all these other things that you're not happy and nobody wants to be like you. You know what? If I'm so busy that I can never take any time off, the world's like, man, I've already got that. They're like, man, I've already got enough on my plate. I don't need that. But when they see that, hey, even though this guy takes a day off, he gets this many things done in his week. Because I guarantee you, when you're faithful and when you do that, when you take time for yourself and time with the Lord, you'll get more done.
Yes.
That's a lie of the enemy that I've just got to stay busy. If you take that time and make that something for you and for God, you'll get more done in your other time. And that's what He desires, and that's a way that we can be a greater witness in this world, is just to take time for ourselves and for God. Father, we thank You for the day. We thank You for Your word and Your truth. We just ask today, God, that You will take this word, minister to us, and help us to look for times and to recognize when we need to just take a day of rest. Help us to look in time and recognize when our spouse needs some time to rest. And God, we ask that You will bring people into our lives on a daily basis that we can share You with. God, that as they see this principle at work in our lives and they see how that our time is more fruitful because we honor the principles that You've given us, God, we just ask that will be a witness and a light for You in this world today. We ask all these things in Jesus' mighty name.